Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and my plan originally for today was to finally edit and upload a video that has been lying around unedited for 2 weeks, 3 weeks possibly, I don't know. It's been a while since I last uploaded. Summer was kind of weird. I've kind of been in a... Emotionally, I've not been doing so great in summer. Let's put it like that. So I've lacked motivations to do a lot of things. And so I think my last video was actually my wrap-up for July. Anyway, when I filmed that other video, I also filmed a review that I wanted to edit, that I now wanted to sit down, edit, which I now can't do because my laptop decided to just give up its life yesterday, or at least the life of its trackpad or connecting to any mouse, really. So I had to run to the store today, get a new laptop, and I didn't see that my new laptop didn't have like the slit thing for the SD card, and I don't have an SD card adapter, so now I can't add it. So the thing that I decided to do instead is to sit down and to try and get through all the reviews that have been piling up, which is a grand total of 3 only, which we'll see if I can actually manage to batch film right now. You'll see it in the next few weeks, I guess. Just look at how many videos I have with this getup. But yeah. With all of that said, let's get into the first of the reviews, and we'll of course start with the one, I won't tell you what the others are yet, but we'll start with the one that's been on my shelf the longest that I had to film, and that is The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This book is one of my biggest surprises of 2024. I don't remember if I actually gave it 5 stars or just close to 5 stars, but I gave it at least 4.75 stars. Now let me tell you why that comes as a surprise. The reason is that before this book I had already read 4 Silvia Moreno Garcia books. The first book that I had read by this author was Gods of Shade and Shadow, which I absolutely loved at the time. I gave the book 5 stars. I think it's a really well done story on the death and the maiden trope, and since it is one of my favorite tropes, I absolutely love it. It's up there with The Winter of the Witches, the 3rd book, The Winter Night Chronicles, the trilogy by Catherine Arden. The Bear and the Nightingale was the first one. Anyway, after that I read Mexican Gothic, which I liked nothing about Mexican Gothic aside from the vibes, so I ended up giving it 2 stars. And then I read also Velvet Was the Night as well as Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Both of them were books that were fine. I got through them. I gave them both, I think, 3 stars, but neither of them were books that blew me away, and I had actually decided to not try any more Silvia Moreno Garcia books at that point. However, when I decided that, I had already bought this one, which is The Beautiful Ones, obviously, which is slightly different from a lot of the other books that I read by her. Actually, that's something that both Velvet Was the Night, Gods of Shade and Shadow and The Beautiful Ones have in common, that I feel both of these books are the most different ones from the ones that I've read. Anyway, I already had this. It's quite short. I think it's just over or just under, it's just under 300 pages. I was like, this is gonna be my last Silvia Moreno Garcia book. And so because my last 3 books by her that I read were books that I didn't really like, I had already gotten kind of to the point of like, if I read Gods of Shade and Shadow now, would I still enjoy it? I kind of doubted it. I didn't expect to have like a bad time with this, but I certainly also didn't expect to have an extraordinary time with this. Boy, was I wrong. I love this book. I adored this book, and it's actually kind of really ironic how somehow this year the books that blow me away the most are from a genre that I typically don't have very much interest in, which is fantasy romance. However, I would say that both of the books aren't like typical fantasy romance, or what I understand typical fantasy romance to be. So yeah, first, before I get to gushing, what is The Beautiful Ones about? The Beautiful Ones follows 3 POV characters. Our first POV character is Nina. Nina is 19, I believe, at the start of the story. She has her first season being introduced to kind of the high society of this country, the city, this world that this story is set in. However, she's quite a spirited young woman. She is not someone who typically you would see as someone who's like a proper lady in high society. She has her own opinions, and also she has the ability to do telekinesis, a talent that is kind of being relegated to performers and not being seen as proper for a young lady of high society. At that point, we get the introduction to our second main character, or second protagonist, which was Hector Ovray. And Hector is a performer. He also can do telekinesis, and because of that, and because Nina has heard of him, he's like one of the greats in his like genre of performance. Nina is quite smitten with him, and he agrees to teach her telekinesis. However, he has his own motivations for wanting to get close to Nina, and that's where our third POV character comes in, which is Valerie. And Valerie is the wife of Nina's cousin. However, she's also Hector's first love, who left him quite a few years ago to marry Nina's cousin. And so Hector tries to get close to Nina to once again get close to Valerie. And so those 3, just like the relationship between those 3 is what this book really is about, the dance between those 3, and that's what propels the plot forward. And aside from that, there isn't really a secondary plot to this story. So let's get started. First, maybe with the negative things, and that is that while this is technically fantasy romance, if you expect a ton of world building from this, it's not really there. It's not even that like the Beautiful Ones are explained, or the dynamic of the Beautiful Ones are explained a lot, or what's so special about the Beautiful Ones. The magic isn't really explained, it's just there. However, personally, I don't think it needs it. I would have loved a little bit more explanation on the Beautiful Ones, because it is, after all, what the title is. The Beautiful Ones, by the way, if I didn't explain it, it is basically what high society is called within this story. But they're also like access to the Beautiful Ones, or an exploration of this society, isn't necessarily even a theme in the book. So I didn't really see why we got, you know, this title. So that's my main gripe, I guess, with the book. Aside from that, I love world building if it's necessary. If it's not necessary, I can go with whimsical. And if telekinesis is not explained, then telekinesis is not explained. You do get a few like teaching situations between Hector and Nina. However, that's really it. So be aware of that if you get into it. Otherwise, let's start gushing about this story. I think part of the reason why I love this so much is because while it is in its essence a romantic fantasy, and while the romance is the central plot line, it also doesn't feel like the romance is the central plot line. Like, it doesn't feel like a romance for romance's sake. It feels like it's more about these very complicated social dynamics between these 3 people, and some of these dynamics, some of the main of these dynamics happen to be romantic. In fact, I would even say that until the last third or so of the story, or the second half of the story, I wasn't even necessarily sure in which direction the romance would go, because in the first half of the story you have 2 main characters. You actually have 3 main characters who have very different types of motivations and very different goals. You have Hector, who wants to get close to Valerie again. You have Nina, who falls in love and wants to get close to Hector. And you have Valerie, who has her very own type of motivations. And I think Valerie, in fact, was one of my favorite characters in the story, and I'll get to her a little bit later. And so a lot of the dynamics in the relationships are very toxic, and it's not really clear throughout the first half of the story what a happy end could even look like. So that, I think, was why this book worked so incredibly well for me. Now let's get more so to the other characters. First we have Nina, who in the first half of the book, not gonna lie, I didn't enjoy that much. I thought she was quite a typical, if somewhat naive, young female main character, protagonist. She was very starry-eyed, she was very trusting. However, something happened in the middle of the book that did change her quite a lot. And so I think throughout the growth that she shows in the second half of the story is really where she started to shine, and where I started to enjoy her, and where I thought she started standing out from other similar type of main characters in similar books or stories. So Nina was kind of a mixed bag for me. First half, I really didn't care for her chapters that much. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm enjoying it. Second half, I really did like her though, and I was really starting to root for her. Then the second character is Hector, and oh my god, Hector is... I love him. He is such a mess. He has this flame still for Valerie. He tells himself constantly this will be the last time that he meets her. He knows his obsession with her isn't good for him, but he's just there. And at the same time, he starts seeing Nina every now and again in a different light, and it's like, okay, will he come to realize his foolish ways? Will he fall for Nina or not? It's a mess, to be honest. Also, that's something that I have to mention as well, because I know some people are uncomfortable with that in literature as well as in real life. I do think that the age gap between Nina and Hector is like not too small. I think Nina is 19 at the beginning of the story, and Hector might be like 27, 28, so I think there might almost be a 10-year age gap between them, with Nina still being very young and naive. So yeah, just to mention that. And then the last character that I love her so much as a character is Valerie. Valerie is a mess, and Valerie is a bitch, and I think she is a character that a lot of readers would probably simply just like push to the side as hateful, as annoying, as disgusting. However, the tragedy of Valerie is that she is a character who has always done what was proper and has always done right by her family, or what was expected of her by her family. So she has let go her first love, her big love, for what is socially correct, because Hector had no money and she was expected to marry rich because her family was destitute at the time. And so she married this guy that ultimately, while he doesn't treat her badly, she does not love. And now she is confronted with Nina, who just not at all cares what is socially correct, and Valerie cannot deal with that. It's almost like she hates Nina so much because she sees in Nina what she herself couldn't have or didn't allow herself to have. And it's such a delicious dynamic. I love Valerie, and I love her like almost slow descent into madness towards the end of the story. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. So yeah, I don't really have that much more to say about the book, to be honest, because the reason why this book is as great as it is 100% the characters and their dynamics, and I can just really recommend it even if you're not someone who typically reads fantasy romance, because I am not as well. Anyway, tell me in the comments down below if you have read this book. What were your thoughts on it? Did I convince you to read this book? Maybe even if you are similar to me and didn't have the greatest experiences with the author so far. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where you read one adult fantasy book written by a woman or gender queer person per month, will be left linked down below, so go and check those out. And I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye!